There is a bottle in your kitchen right now with two words on the front, extra virgin, and there's a real chance those two words are a lie. Scientists took the most popular extra virgin olive oils in America straight off the shelf and tested them blind. Nobody doing the testing knew which brand was which. Nearly 7 out of 10 imported bottles failed. They weren't extra virgin at all. Some were rancid, some were old. Some had been quietly blended with a cheaper, lower grade of oil the label never mentioned. 7 brands failed the test. 3 passed clean. And the ones that passed weren't from across some far-off ocean. They were grown on American soil. Here's everyone. Before we start naming them, you need to understand why this happens. Because once you see the money, none of it looks like an accident. Real extra virgin olive oil is expensive to make. To earn that grade, the oil has to come from olives pressed without heat and without chemicals, fresh enough and clean enough that it carries no defects, real olive flavor, and an acidity level under a tiny threshold. That takes good fruit, picked at the right time and pressed fast. It is a short, careful, costly process. Now look at the shelf. Bottle after bottle of extra virgin, all priced within $1 or $2 of each other. Many of them cheap enough that the math simply can't be true. You cannot grow, harvest, press, ship across an ocean and still sell genuine extra virgin oil at the price of a bottle of soda. So something gives. And what gives is the one thing you can't see through the glass, the oil itself. Keep that in mind for every bottle we cover. When a premium product sells at a bargain price, the discount came from somewhere. There's one more thing to clear up before the countdown because the label uses words that were built to blur together. Extra virgin is the top grade. First press, no heat, no chemicals, no defects. Below it sits plain virgin oil, which is allowed more flaws. And below that sit the refined oils, stripped and reprocessed until most of what made olive oil worth eating is gone. Now here's the trap that catches good, careful shoppers every single day. Light olive oil. A lot of people reach for it, believing light means fewer calories, a healthier choice. It does not. Light refers to the color and the flavor, because that oil has been refined until it's pale and nearly tasteless. It has the same calories as any other oil and far fewer of the antioxidants you're buying olive oil for in the first place. So when a bottle leans on the word light, it isn't offering you a lighter product. It's offering you a stripped-down one and counting on you to hear something the word was never allowed to mean. Now, the 7. Number 7. Star. This is the quiet one. The bottle that's been sitting in American kitchens for decades, in a package that feels safe precisely because it feels familiar. No family crest, no estate story, just a plain, trusted supermarket bottle at a comfortable price. And I'm going to be straight with you about Star because it matters. When the laboratory ran the chemistry on this one, it came back clean. Star did not fail the chemical tests. That's the honest picture, and you deserve it. So, why is it on this list? Because Star was one of the 5 top-selling imported brands the researchers grouped together. And as a group, those 5 failed the sensory standard the overwhelming majority of the time. And because Star was named directly in the class action lawsuit that followed, over marketing everyday oil as extra virgin. But here's the real reason to put it back on the shelf. Pick up the bottle and turn it over. Look for a harvest date, not a best before date sitting 3 years out. A harvest date telling you the year those olives were actually picked. Star won't give you one. And that's the pattern for this entire list. An olive oil that won't tell you when it was harvested is an olive oil asking you to trust a name instead of a fact. The next one wears its Italian heritage on the front, and it defends that heritage in a way you should learn to see through. Number 6. Colavita, the green bottle, the Italian name, the one that looks like it belongs on a checkered tablecloth south of Rome. Colavita has built a real reputation, and the company defends it hard. When the independent findings came out, Colavita pushed back, pointing to its own internal testing and quality control as proof its oil is the real thing. Learn to hear what that argument actually is. Internal testing is a company grading its own homework. It's the brand telling you it checked itself and is satisfied. That is a very different thing from what happened in the study. There, trained panels tested the oil blind, with no idea whose bottle they were tasting, judged only on whether it smelled and tasted like real, fresh, defect-free olives. And samples of Colavita sold as extra virgin didn't consistently clear that bar. When a brand answers an independent failure by pointing to its own private testing, It isn't disproving the result. It's changing the subject. The only test that protects you is the one where the company doesn't know it's being watched and doesn't get to mark its own paper. The next brand didn't just perform poorly in that study, it performed worse than almost anything else on the shelf. Number 5. Pompeian. Pompeian markets itself as the responsible choice. It takes part in a voluntary quality seal program and puts that seal forward as proof you're getting the genuine article, which makes the laboratory result hard to sit with. In the testing, samples of Pompeian extra virgin had one of the highest sensory failure rates of every brand examined. The overwhelming majority of what the trained panels tasted did not qualify as extra virgin, a quality seal on the front, and independent panels rejecting most of what they tasted inside. Now, in fairness, this is where you should hear the other side, and I mean the whole list, not just Pompeian. Every brand named in that study disputed it. The trade group that represents these importers has argued for years that the research was flawed, and it points out that the study was funded in part by California olive growers who compete directly with imports. That criticism is real, and you should carry it with you. This was one study from one moment in time, and the companies say their oil has changed since. Fair enough. But here's what hasn't changed, because it's sitting right in front of you on the shelf. Look at the bottle most of these brands come in. Clear glass. Light pours straight through it, and light is one of the fastest, quietest ways to break olive oil down, month after month, under the fluorescent lights of a store. A voluntary seal on a clear bottle is a promise printed on the outside of a container, designed to break that promise slowly on the inside. The next name took this exact question all the way to court. Number 4. Filippo Berio, one of the most recognizable Italian olive oil names in America, and the subject of a lawsuit over the single question this whole investigation turns on. Where does the oil actually come from? The company behind Filippo Berio was sued in the United States over labeling that led shoppers to believe the oil was Italian, when the olives were sourced from a rotating mix of countries. The company denied wrongdoing, but the case dragged the real mechanism into the open. Here it is, plainly. A global bottler buys olive oil wherever it's cheapest that season. Spain one year, Tunisia the next, Greece after that. It all flows into the same tank, gets bottled under one familiar Italian name, and lands on your shelf looking like one small village made it by hand. When the oil is a blend of half a dozen countries, no one, not even the company, can point to the grove it came from. Traceability isn't hidden. It's impossible. And there's a second cost to that long multi-country journey, one most people never think about. Olive oil is not like wine. It does not get better with age. It's more like fruit. Think of a banana. Perfect and green one week, spotted the next, then dark and gone. Olive oil runs the same clock, just slower and out of sight. From the moment the olives are pressed, the oil begins to fade. Every extra week, every extra mile, every transfer from one country's tank to another's is another turn of that clock. So, an oil blended across 6 countries and shipped across an ocean isn't just untraceable. It's older and more worn before it ever reaches your cart. The journey itself is quietly lowering the quality the label still promises. The next entry isn't one brand. It's the entire bottom shelf. Number 3. Store brand and private label olive oil, the house brands. The one wearing the supermarket's own name, sitting $1 or $2 under everything else, looking like the smart, sensible pick. The logic feels sound. Skip the marketing, keep the oil, save the money. But that's not what you're buying. A supermarket doesn't own olive groves. It doesn't press oil. It writes a contract, and that contract goes to whichever supplier can deliver a bottle labeled extra virgin at the lowest cost that still clears the minimum legal line to use those words in America. And in this country, that line barely holds. Great enforcement for olive oil in the United States is thin. There is no army of federal inspectors tasting supermarket oil to confirm it's really extra virgin. In practice, the grade runs largely on the honor system. Here's the part that should stop you cold. The supplier behind a store brand this year may not be the supplier behind it next year. The contract rotates on price. When it rotates, the source changes, the country changes, the oil changes. The label stays identical. The bottle looks exactly the same in your cart. Everything behind it can change, with zero signal to you. If this breakdown is helping you look at your own pantry differently, a quick like helps it reach more people who are buying these bottles right now with no idea what's inside. Takes 1 second, now. The last two brands share the same corporate parent, and that parent has already paid in an American courtroom to settle this exact question. Number 2. Carapelli. Carapelli presents itself as the refined, slightly premium Italian bottle. A little more elegant than the everyday names. A little more expensive. What most shoppers never learn is who actually owns it. Carapelli is owned by Deoleo, a large Spanish corporation that also owns the single biggest name still coming up on this list. Two Italian olive oil icons, controlled by the same multinational, drawing from the same global supply chain. That's the trick worth seeing. The Italian heritage on a Carapelli label is a brand asset, a feeling that's been bought and maintained. The company steering it is Spanish, and the olives inside can come from wherever the world market is cheapest. Carapelli was also swept into the same class action, built on the same independent findings, over the same two words that keep repeating through this whole investigation. One protection you do have here. Reach past the clear bottles for a dark glass bottle or a tin. Real producers who care about the oil use packaging that blocks light, because they know what light does to it over months on a shelf. Clear glass tells you the seller was thinking about how the oil looks in your hand, not how it survives until you use it. And the parent company behind Carapelli is exactly why the number 1 brand on this list is here. Number 1. Bertolli. The single most recognized olive oil name in America, and the clearest case of everything this investigation is about. Bertolli is owned by Deoleo, the same Spanish corporation behind Carapelli. And in the United States, Deoleo agreed to a $7 million settlement in a class action over how Bertolli olive oil was labeled. Let's be precise, because precision is the whole point. Deoleo denied any wrongdoing. It maintained its products were always truthfully labeled, and no court ever issued a final ruling that the company lied. It settled. But look at what the settlement required. Deoleo agreed to stop using the phrase imported from Italy unless the product was actually made from olives grown and pressed in Italy. And it agreed to adopt stronger testing to confirm the oil met the extra virgin standard. Read that again. A company does not agree to stop saying made in Italy and to start testing harder for extra virgin quality over a product where the olives were always Italian and the oil was always extra virgin. The remedy tells you what the problem was. The filings laid out the mechanism in plain words. Olives grown and pressed across Greece, Chile, Spain, Australia, Turkey, and Tunisia, shipped to Italy, mixed and bottled there, then sold to Americans as Italian extra virgin at an Italian price. As one filing put it, Turkish or Chilean oil doesn't become Italian just because it passed through Italy on the way to your cart. And understand, this is not a story about a few bad bottles. Investigative journalists and European authorities have documented this same pattern for years on both sides of the Atlantic. Even in the most productive olive-growing region on Earth in Spain, government investigators have found the same quality failures. This is a global trade built, in large part, on a word that's easy to print and hard to enforce. That's why Bertolli sits at number 1. Not because it had the worst chemistry, because it carried the biggest promise, the most trusted name in the aisle, the one your parents bought, and it took a 7-figure legal settlement to change the words on the label. When the most trusted name in the category has to be told in court to stop implying where its oil comes from, the word trusted is doing a lot of work the bottle never earned. 7 brands. Now, before we get to what actually holds up, there's one thing you can check tonight with a bottle you already own. You've probably heard that you can put olive oil in the refrigerator, and if it turns solid, it's real. Forget that. It doesn't work. Plenty of low-grade oils firm up in the cold, and plenty of genuine ones stay liquid. That test proves nothing. Here's what actually tells you something. Pour a little of the oil into a clear glass and hold it up to the light. Then bring it close and smell it. Fresh, well-made extra virgin oil tends to carry a deep golden green color, a certain body, a slight cling to the glass, and a real aroma, grassy, peppery, alive. Oil that pours out thin and pale and smells of almost nothing is telling you it's old, badly stored, or stretched with something cheaper. It isn't a laboratory, but it reads the same signal the trained panels read, in a simpler form. And it cost you nothing but 30 seconds and a clean glass. Now here's what actually holds up. Best option number 3. Lucini. Start with the one the study itself couldn't fault. When most of the imported bottles were failing, Lucini stood out as the best-performing imported oil in the entire evaluation, on both the flavor panels and the chemistry. In a category where the imports were the problem, this was the import that wasn't. The reason isn't a slogan, it's control. Lucini built its name on estate-grown Italian fruit and tight quality standards, the opposite of the anonymous global blend model that sank the avoid list. When a brand can tell you the estate, the fruit, and the standard, and then survives blind independent testing, that's not marketing, that's a paper trail. Do the same check you ran on everything else: a stated origin, a harvest window, a dark bottle. On this one, you'll actually find those answers instead of a vague Italian feeling. It costs more than the failed names it shares a shelf with. But that gap isn't packaging. It's the difference between an oil that can survive being tested blind and one that only survives because no one is checking. You're paying for the checking. Best option number 2. Cobram Estate. This one isn't Italian at all, and that is exactly why it's worth your attention. Cobram Estate grows its own olives and runs its own mills. That single fact, owning the chain from grove to bottle, is the thing almost nothing on the avoid list can claim. In the same study where most imported extra virgin bottles failed, Cobram Estate passed. It has gone on to win international awards judged on precisely the fresh, clean, defect-free quality the failed brands lacked. And it comes back to that oxidation clock. When one company grows the olives, mills them fast after harvest, and bottles the result, there's no anonymous global tank and no months-long journey between countries. There's a short, traceable line from a specific orchard to the bottle in your hand. Pick it up, and the whole model is right there on the label. Harvest date, origin, often a tin or a dark bottle to guard against the light. Everything the bottom shelf hides, this one prints. Best option number 1, California Olive Ranch. And the single strongest answer to this entire investigation was grown right here at home. California Olive Ranch was one of the American-grown oils that cleanly met the extra virgin standard, while most imports carrying the same words did not. On the study's own numbers, domestic California oils failed at a small fraction of the rate the imports did. The reason is distance and time. That oxidation clock starts the moment olives are picked, and every ocean crossing and every multi-country transfer is another turn of it. California-grown, California-milled oil skips the journey. The grove and the mill sit close together, and the oil doesn't spend months at sea before it reaches you. Look at the bottle and you'll see a company behaving like it has nothing to hide. A harvest date in plain sight. California origin stated flat out. A dark bottle built to protect what's inside. For their 100% California oils, you are getting exactly what the label says. Grown in one place, pressed in one place, traceable to that place. It costs more than the bottom shelf. That cost is the short supply chain, the honest harvest date, and a real answer to the one question every brand on the avoid list refused to answer. Where did this oil come from? 7 brands, 3 that held up. You reached for extra virgin olive oil for good reasons. It's one of the healthiest fats you can put in your body. But those benefits live in oil that is actually fresh and actually what it claims to be. The moment it's old, degraded, or blended down, the label is the only part of it still doing its job. And what the laboratories found is that, for a huge share of the imported bottles carrying the words extra virgin, the words were the best part. Old oil, worn oil, oil blended from countries the label never named. The most trusted name in the aisle needed a court settlement before it would stop implying where its oil came from. Now you know which ones. And you know the 3 that earned every word on their labels. So next time you're standing in that aisle, don't read the front of the bottle. Turn it over and run the same short checklist every time. 1. Look for the country of the olives, not the country of the bottling plant. 2. Look for a harvest date, not just a best before sitting years away. 3. Choose a dark bottle or a tin over clear glass, so the light can't quietly ruin it. 4. Trust a real certification or a stated estate over a slogan the company wrote about itself. If the story on the front is louder than the facts on the back, put it down. Share this with anyone you know who's buying olive oil for their health right now. They're reaching for these bottles trusting the label. The bottle looks exactly the way it always has. What's inside it has never been more worth checking.